And we will go live in 5, 4. Oh, before we do that, what's the number of today's show, guys? Is it 24 or 25? Do you remember? 25? Okay, thank you. We'll start the show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is This Week in Science and Education, episode 25, Electromagnetic Radiation. It's time for This Week in Science and Education, the show that talks about all things related to science and academic discovery and health research, and how to take that information and bring it into today's classroom. On today's show, Dr. Frank Pratto from the University of Western Ontario and Appleby College from Oakville. All that today and more on This Week in Science and Education. This Week in Science and Education is brought to you by Polycom, world leaders in unified communications. Polycom.ca. And by Mueller Systems. Need a backup? Check out Mueller at MULLERDATA.com/VROC, VROC. Hey everybody, it's time for This Week in Science and Education. This is your host, Kevin Kugler. Joining me as always, Colin Jago from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board. Hey Colin, how are you?
Hello and good afternoon everybody, great to be here.
Well, it's good to have you here, and as usual, Thomas Merritt has decided to join us from Laurentian. How are things up at Laurentian, Thomas?
You know, you'll be surprised to hear they're freaking cold up here.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. We're enjoying, what was it, plus 25, I think it was today, Frank? Is that right?
You're a funny man. It's a beautiful day up here. It's gorgeous, but it's chilly, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, as long as you're driving, right, in a heated car, no problem. So joining us today, we have a couple special guests, and I'll introduce the gentleman to my right, your left first. This is Dr. Frank Pratto. Frank is from the University of Western Ontario and the, is it the Lawson Health Research Institute? Yeah. So Frank is going to talk to us today a little bit about his research, and joining us in that discussion, we're very pleased to acknowledge Appleby College from Oakville, Ontario. Appleby, maybe you could just give a wave to everybody. How are you? Good. Excellent. So we have some grade 12 students there, and Dr. Actually, I'm not sure if it's Dr., but Anjali Ahuja, this is her class, and we'll ask them to introduce themselves in a minute as well. But before I get to you, Appleby, Dr. Frank Pratto from University of Western Ontario, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, your research, and just give the students an idea of what it is that you do?
Sure. I'm very pleased to be here, and let's see, maybe I can introduce myself in a couple of ways. First of all, I don't usually wear sunglasses indoors, so maybe I'll explain that first. In 1982, I was extremely proud of the fact that my lab produced the first magnetic resonance image of a human brain. We were diagnosing a minor stroke at that point in time, and so we were the first to do that in December 1982. Now, why do I bring that up? I bring that up because since the end of December, I've developed a sensitivity to light, and so I'm wearing these sunglasses. I'll take them off so you can see that there are eyes behind here. But let me tell you, last week, they couldn't find out what was wrong with my eyes, so I guess about 30 years after the fact, 29 years after the fact, they stuck me in an MRI and looked at my brain. So as I explained to a colleague right afterwards, well, I don't have a tumor, I don't have an aneurysm, I don't have MS, I don't have a stroke, but I still can't see. And he said to me, well, 4 out of 5 isn't bad, Frank. So I got involved and interested in non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation when we were introducing MRI in the early 1980s. I'm also very pleased to be here for a number of other reasons. One reason is that I was this morning, I'll just tell you a little bit about my day. This morning I had an opportunity to meet with the gastroenterologists, both surgeons and medical people at the hospital, because we had just developed a new imaging technique to image irritable bowel, and we had done 6 volunteers, and we were trying to get the the surgeons and the physicians to start referring patients to us. So that was the morning. Unfortunately, it started earlier than I'd liked, so maybe I would be wearing glasses anyways. It started at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not very much awake at 7 in the morning. Then later in the day, I picked up a journal. I like reading science. And this is, as you know, a well-known journal. And actually, there's an editorial in here about education in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And it says at present, only 6% of all 24-year-old Americans, it's about the US, but it applies to us, hold an undergraduate degree in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics disciplines. And this is the fastest growing segment of the economy, and the Americans are being outstripped in terms of training people. And I'm very pleased to be here. If in any way I can influence you to continue on your interest in science, then extremely important for the economic health of our country. Now, as I said, I was particularly interested in the potential that non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation, in which cell phones are part of that process, as is wireless communication. But back in 1982, there was no such stuff as cell phones and wireless communication, but we were imaging like people's brains using magnetic fields and radio waves and extremely low frequency pulsed magnetic fields. And I got interested in the potential that there could be effects. Now, there was at that time a reaction to me getting involved because people didn't want us to find any effects of magnetic fields in biological systems. They wanted to first establish the role of magnetic resonance imaging in the facilities that we have for non-invasively diagnosing disease. But nevertheless, we persisted, and we now have a group in our lab that is internationally known for its investigations into non-ionizing effects of electromagnetic radiation. So right now I have a group of about 100. I'm going to be 65-year-old soon, and we're applying imaging techniques, and we want to look at the diagnosis of disease, and I'm particularly interested in whether any of these things have effects. Now, recently, I was also in the last 10 years brought into this question of cell phone and whether there are cell phone effects. And so I'll leave it with a couple of quotes, and then you can start asking questions. In the Scientific American let's see if I can read it with these glasses on. This was which issue?
October 2010.
Thank you very much, Kevin. So October 2010, there was an issue called The Skeptic, and it summarizes at the end in terms of is it possible that cell phones can cause cancer, in particular brain cancer, because we put the cell phones usually against our heads. And the article makes fun of anybody who should imagine doing any research in this area. And I'll quote, if I can, I'll change glasses here. You'll see my eyes for a few seconds. This, although in principle it is difficult to prove a negative, in this case, one can say it is impossible for cell phones to hurt the brain. And so that's how it ends. Now, this morning I was trying to think of a similar quote, and I remembered something that Lord Kelvin had said about 100 years earlier. He said, there is nothing new to be discovered. This is before Einstein. This is before quantum mechanics. There is nothing new to be discovered in physics now. All that remains is more and more precise measurement. And to put in perspective another of his quotes, X-rays will prove to be a hoax. So why did I bring these two quotes together? Well, I assume that the imaginative class, grade 12 class at Appleton, will be able to ask me questions about that. And I apologize, the light's bothering me. Hopefully one of the imaging techniques I'm scheduled for later on this week will solve this problem as to what's wrong with my eyes. But in the meantime, I've got to have to put on some sunglasses. So that's the introduction to myself.
Super. Well, we're talking with Dr. Frank Pratto from the University of Western Ontario, and I think at this point we'll introduce Appleby College, and I'll ask Ms. Ahuja to do the honors of introducing herself in the class, and perhaps we can take some questions from the students if you're game.
That's why I'm here.
I think we'll ask you to closer to the microphone if you could. If you could move a little closer to the microphone, please.
Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's much better. Thank you.
Great. So I have my grade 12 students here who have taken AP Physics, a number of other AP courses as well. And they are also enrolled in my science club, and they want to do some research and learn from Dr. Prato how electromagnetic radiations affect, or whether they do affect, the brain cell tissues. So they have some questions, and they would be looking for information and some maybe ideas how they can go forward with this research work. So that's what we are looking for here. So I will first start with Brent Ward, who's sitting on my left, and he will start with the first question. So Brent, you want to start?
Hi, Dr. Prato, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You can, okay. So my name is Brent Parker, and I'll be asking the first question today. So here we go. Is there any known link between electromagnetic radiation and brain function? And if there is, what is not known about the link between brain function and radiation?
I think we missed the last part of that question, Brent. Your voice kind of tailed off.
Okay. So is there any link between the amylase and the brain function, and what is not known, if there is in fact a link? Is there anything that's we're not 100% sure about?
Were you able to catch that?
I apologize. I'm not exactly sure what you asked. I think what you asked was, is there anything known in terms of effects of, would you say, cell phones on brain function? Was that the question?
Well, any electromagnetic radiation whatsoever. But yeah, cell phones would count as one, yeah.
What Brent is asking, is there any known interaction or relationship between EM waves and the brain? And specifically, he also would like to know what is not known yet, because that can be more scary than what we already know about. So is there anything that we don't know about and we should be looking for that?
Well,
Was that better now?
It's an interesting way of posing a very difficult question. So, there have been a number of committees worldwide, and we have a committee in Canada that sets safety code limits, Safety Code 6, for example. And since 1999, a group of us have been getting together and reviewing the literature of what's known and what isn't known and what should be done. And we've reviewed the literature repeatedly about every 2 or 3 years. First of all, as I tried to indicate from the quotes I've read,